And we are live. Welcome, everybody, to the Mind Speak room where we talk all about speaking, whether it's TEDx, whether it is, let's put that over there, whether it's TEDx, whether it's corporate, and usually corporate is paid, but sometimes it isn't. And I am joined by my fabulous crew, my motley crew, who've been with me since days of Clubhouse, hasn't it?
Long time.
long
veteran.
time. Exactly. And in the
now
house.
Clubhouse dates you.
I was going to say, now you're making us sound old. So.
Well, we're pandemic old in terms of being together as a group. And today I'm always joined by different moderators because they're busy as well. So always happy when they join me. We have Dr. Michelle Williams, give a little wave. We have Tara Geraghty. Benny Salas is in the house. With the sound effect, we've got Jeannie Snyder and Dara Connolly. So, and myself, obviously, Elaine Powell. And our subject today, because we come on every bi-weekly, or if you're in, twice a month, the second and fourth Friday, I was going to say Thursday, that right then, Friday of the month. And we share with you our golden nuggets. Everybody on this panel is a professional speaker, and they also have other arms to their business, and speaking is one of the arms that will help promote their services, their impact, and obviously increase their income. So as you can see today, the subject is how to navigate the world of corporate speaking. And many of us help people to become TEDx speakers, but I feel in the world of speaking, majority of people want to go out and speak, and the majority actually want to get paid because it's reciprocity. We're giving and we're receiving back. So, I have some questions I'm going to ask my moderators, myself included. And first of all, I'm not going to ask all of you the same question because then that just gets a bit kind of laborious and boring. So I'll ask a few of you and then we'll move on to the next question. How did you get, actually, no, I'm going to ask all of you this question because I think this one's really pertinent and the other ones I'll mix and Mitch. Mix and match?
Yes.
I'm not even sure what that means, but we'll do that.
Max and Mitch, I like that. I like that. You heard that one.
My wordplay for today.
I love it.
Backwards. All right. How did you get into the world of corporate? Do you remember that first time? Jump in. Who wants to share first?
Well, I feel kind of funny saying I remember my first time, but my first official retreat, that was my first job after quit my day job, went into full-time speaking, was a corporate retreat. And they were talking about communication. And it was a very, very diverse group. And so I remember it well. And it was an amazing experience.
Okay.
Do you want me to expand or do you want me to stop? Okay, keep going.
Yeah. How did you get the gig?
It was from a relationship that I have, actually from a close relationship that I have, and I had done some smaller things with them. And when they knew that I went full time, as soon as I did, they said, we'd like you to lead our corporate retreat. So because I knew them through friends and family, so they knew that's how I first got the relationship, and they invited me in, or they referred me, and then the CEO hired me.
For the person listening, have you? I feel like I need a ding, 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 ding.
Referral,
and another R as well. Relationships.
Yes, absolutely. And the business and personal sometimes collide in a very good way. That's the intersection, I think, of learning how to find different speaking opportunities. It's not always just the it's rarely the cold call, in my opinion, but it's the referral, the relationship, and that intersection of both.
I need to have a sound horn. Mama, mama.
I love that. I love the personal sound horns. It's actually.
But yes, it is relationships. I think sometimes people will go on, Google and research and contact people that way. But if they don't know, and if you're not known, if you don't have that visibility, the likelihood of them saying yes is really, really small. So I love that. Referrals. Can we have another third R? Because we've got 3 R's. We've got referral, relationships,
and repeat. I think the repeat business, because I ended up doing business with that company for probably 20 years.
Wow.
So it was all kinds of things in customer service, communication, leadership team. And it was so interesting because I was a little nervous at even though I knew a couple of the people, people came in, I'm greeting them, and we had everyone from people straight out of college to the seasoned multi-million-dollar CEO to the professional Yugoslavian soccer player, football player who had just joined the team. And he is one of my favorite people to this day. He still works with pieces of that company.
Wow. Wow, incredible. So look, we got the 3s, the tricolon, because we're speakers and we like the power of 3. Relationships, hopefully you're writing that down. Referral and repeat.
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 REPEAT. Ding, 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 ding. Okay.
Okay, lovely. Thank you, Jeannie. Who would like to share?
I can't even remember my very first, but I will say in following Jeannie, what I can remember is I can only probably count on one hand the number of times that I have been booked to speak because I proactively cold called, and I don't mean cold, but submitted for something or put something out there that I had no connection to them. Literally everything I've done for the most part has been exactly what Jeannie's saying, is relationship. It's knowing somebody who either referred me to somebody or they saw me speak somewhere and they told a friend or asked me, hey, do you do this? Now I'm thinking to myself, wow, how much more would you get booked if you actually put stuff out there more? But I do think, Elaine, what you said, not unless you're very well established, it's the credibility of somebody says, yes, this is somebody you want to bring in. That goes way further than you can promote yourself. I think one of the first, I'm trying to think back, one of the very first ones, I was very, very young, because I just remember being very scared. It was a room of 300 or 500 people. And it was a training for a sales. And I do remember being very scared, but I think it was somebody who had heard what I was doing. And she asked me to come in and train for their group. And the president, I remember now, the president of the company was there. And that's why I was so scared. And I was really young. So I remember when I got off stage, a friend of mine said, oh, the president turned to the woman and was like, who is that girl? Where did you get her from? Because I was like a nobody. But it's all been very much who knew somebody who knew someone. So that relationship to me, I think, is so key. And you don't know where those relationships are going to go. I've had things where I wasn't pursuing for speaking. I didn't even think they were connected in speaking. And yet, if you're good and people get value and they feel like they walked away with something that changed their life, they tell other people.
Yeah, I definitely would agree with that. So when I think back to my very first speaking, it was at JP Morgan, and it came from, I developed a course when I was at Cornell University, I developed a course on women in leadership and entrepreneurship. And one of my former students who got a job at JP Morgan was a part of the women in global management group. They had an ERG, invited me in, and it was fabulous because they also, so it was all women of different levels of the organization, but 2 of the managing partners who were male came and sat in the talk to really understand better the challenges of women in that corporate environment. So that's, definitely, I think relationships are one of the major ways that you get talks. But the other way I get talks is I'll say, well, how did you hear about me? And they're like, well, I Googled, trust and trust building, and your name is one of the first ones to come up. And because I'm a professor and I do research, some organizations want research-based information around the leadership or trust building. So I'll get talks that are through my research, but then also just social media, right? So I do a lot of talks where I do apply to conferences. And so people will say, oh, I saw the name of this conference talk you're doing. Can you do that for our organization? Or can you do something similar? So as Elaine was mentioning, those unpaid conferences that are in your topic area, they promote, right? So they're to the conference, they promote what the speakers are, they'll put it on Instagram, and other people will see that and say, oh, that would be great for our organization. So that's another way to get corporate speaking.
Yeah, I feel like you're setting me up, because both Jeannie and Michelle, doctors, set me up because I did both referrals and leveraging. See, I hadn't been in corporate for many years. I was teaching women's empowerment for many, many years ago. And that's how I leveraged in, because my only contacts were the women that I used to teach. Even though they were younger at the time, I went back, many years later, I sent the email, who do you know? This is now what I'm doing. Who do you know? And one of the girls wrote back saying, yeah, I do work at a company. Would love to bring you in. And that was my first way in, because I didn't know anybody in corporate. I hadn't worked in corporate since I graduated college. And that was, you don't have those contacts if you don't know anybody. So if you're listening and you're thinking, well, I don't work in corporate, I don't have any connections, you probably do. You just have to think outside the box. Who do you know? Where's your referral base? What connections do you have? And then you leverage yourself in. And once you're in, then you leverage that opportunity for the next one. So for me, that was everything, was leveraging my past network.
Yeah, wow. I'm going to just pause here, because we have, before we go on to Benny, because, Dr. Michelle, Tara, Jeannie, and Dara have touched on some really great points. And I just want to go back to the conference that, oh, someone's typing, just put yourself on mute, please. The conference that you said that you cold call, but it's because of the topic is something that they're really interested in, that will have you be accepted. Dr. Michelle, has she frozen, or is that just me?
No, can you say that again?
She froze, but not technically.
Unfroze at the right time. So you're saying that because you do a lot of research-based, you put a lot of research in your topics, and mostly because you're talking to more academics as well, but you also do cold calling, and you do apply for conferences, in Google that will be interested in your topics. So for those people who, because we don't want to eliminate, yes, we know relationships and referrals is great, but there are conferences on Google. What is it, do you feel, has them accept your application when you put it through?
So I think that conferences are looking for certain things. So a lot of times so my three topics, one are, negotiation and micro negotiation for women. I do inclusive leadership. So when the conference is around that topic, and they might be looking for instance, I did a conference where they were looking for speakers who talked about well-being, but I did it from the perspective of negotiation, right? So how do you negotiate those boundaries that increase well-being? So it was a unique topic for them. So making sure you're on topic with what the organizers are looking for. Feel comfortable reaching out to the organizers and saying, this is my topic, what do you think, right? Before you even submit the application. And they'll say, oh yes, or we're looking for something a little more in this vein, can you tweak it that way? And then your title makes a difference. It's just like your Instagram captions. Titles are critical, because the titles are what make people click on it and what make people sign up for your session versus another session.
Oh, I love that. So
can I ask a question about that?
Yeah, of course.
I just love that. Michelle, I'd love to hear, how do you, I feel like there were two things you said that I was curious on. You're right about titles, right? Because I'm thinking I do that myself. I look at what's the title, and that's how I decide more than anything else. Do you have like one tip on how you know this is a great title?
So there are lots of people who have like go to name generators and things like that, but I tend to take titles that include something like a name of a song or a common phrase, something that people will immediately resonate with. So when I do a talk on trust, that first part before the colon might be "in whom we trust," or "when no is better than yes." So something where the first part is just like, whoa, what is that? And then they'll read the rest to, kind of figure out exactly what the talk is about. But having that little phrase at the front that just like, So sometimes it's, the 5 things you didn't know about this, what you should never do when you negotiate, things that people are like, it brings a little bit of curiosity. And then I always run it by people. I don't just put it in a title. You go into work or you go into a coffee shop, even you can talk to, your siblings or, your friends and say, do you like this one or that? Do you like this title or that title? I will also go into Facebook groups that are around my title, and I'll just do a poll. Which title do you like better? Or I'll send it out to my email list. Which title do you like better? And getting that feedback really gets you to pinpoint a title that people will click on. Because I often get, when there are breakout sessions, they're like, oh, so many people are signing up for your session. We're not going to be able to even it out. And I think the title really does it. And then that paragraph below it, making sure you include what will the participants take away, right? What are the things that they are now going to be able to do when they walk out of your session that they couldn't do before they came in?
Fabulous. I did a little session once with my speaker group on titles, and I researched some, and I liked ones. It was, instead of Think and Grow Rich, her title was Speak. It had you think already, Think and Grow Rich, but rich. There was another one, and it was Pimp Your Pitch.
Oh, that's
and I
good.
thought that was very yeah. Benny, I think is Benny, you're very good at wordsmith. I feel that you come up with really memorable sort of taglines and messages as well. But before I come on to you, Benny, so Dr. Michelle, you said about, titles, and obviously the brief about the talk is very important. We need to put the problem in there so that people see that, oh, they recognize themselves. Oh, that's me. And then the solution as well, to know that with corporates and conferences, they really are interested in what is the outcome people going to take away after they did this event. So it's important to put that.
And sometimes you can include like
Benny, Dara.
You're freezing a little for me. And also you can include like a blueprint or a checklist that they're going to take away with them from the session, because often it's hard to remember. I think that I would love to hear from the panel to see if they're using AI. That's also a great way. Put in the title you think it's good and have AI generate 3 or 4 versions of it. Often just sparks, you don't use AI to replace you, but it sparks additional creativity, which I find very helpful.
Yes. How many of you use AI? We were going to miss it
a little bit.
It's the way forward, y'all. It's the way forward. And Dara, you spoke about, you hadn't any contacts in the corporate world because you hadn't been there for a while. What is people's views about doing things for free to kind of get your foot in there? Maybe I'll ask Benny there, because I haven't heard from Benny yet.
I'm here.
Yeah. What's your views about getting into corporate and doing things for free just to kind of get your foot in?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you don't have a referral base, or you don't have clients that you're working with that can pull you in, that you've worked with that are on retainer, I think you should offer yourself to do something for free. It doesn't have to be an hour long. I think one thing I used to do was I would say, hey, can I come into your team, your huddle meetings? Can I give 5 minutes of encouragement on leadership? Can I come in and I'd love to at the back end, I'd love to just sit down and offer any value or feedback on ways to improve, your leadership meetings. Can you invite me? And hey, do you do a monthly thing? I think the more questions you ask, the better you can frame your offer to somebody. I think sometimes asking the right question is better than giving the right statement. And so, because it makes people realize like, wow, that's a great question. You saw something, or you made me think about something that I didn't realize was there. And I think that's one of the most easiest ways to do that. I mean, there are some framing questions. I think you just have to be careful. I think if you run off like 10 questions in a row, probably not a good idea. But I think if you ask, hey, when's the last time you had a guest speaker, come in and share, and what are some of the topics that your team or your executive team feel like, again, they're looking for, and you got to know the season of the organization as well. You also got to know the phase of development of the organization to then offer and tweak what the value is to get your foot in the door. I remember the first time I did one, it wasn't for free. I charged like $600. I did it dirt cheap, but the content that I got from it, the leg up, the fact that I was able to use those photos and videos to get the next one and the next one and the next one, that was more valuable than actually getting paid, right? And so you also have to know also the leverage of putting that person's logo, the fact that I serviced them and they're now a partner, was more valuable than what they could have paid me. Okay. And so for me, I think if you don't have a way in, do it for free. Start with, there's certain ways to do this. There's the industry that you can pursue. There's the market you can pursue, or there's the audience you can pursue. And I think either one of those three, you have to figure out what's your sweet spot, right? Like what do you gravitate to? And like, who's inviting you in? Like if somebody says, man, we'd love to come hear you speak, jump on that. Don't wait for an opportunity. Don't send them this like ridiculous proposal. Like fill it out, build the relationship, play the long game with people so that they can see you but be careful. If you do too many things for free, they think you're cheap and they will never pay you. And so you also have to balance that out with wisdom. And that's why I would say, yeah, come in for 10 minutes. And then afterwards, I'd love to share with you what I do as a paid speaker or as a facilitator. And that way they know upfront how I work and how I operate.
I love that. Thank you, Benny. Angeline. Hello, Angeline. She's in LinkedIn. And Angeline says, she had asked, how do they pay you to speak at corporate events? So I feel like we answered just on time that question for you, Angeline. And she says, good points, Benny. So thank you for commenting. It's always great to know somebody's listening and taking in this information. And Benny, just to repeat, you said, the three things you're either going to be speaking or focusing more on the industry, the market.
The industry, the audience, and the market, right? I think those are easy ways to start to figure out like where do you thrive? Like putting somebody in just saying, take a corporate speaking gig, and they have all this experience in this industry, they're probably better starting there, right? They're probably better just like leveraging that. But if you have a topic and a subject matter that is applicable to any business, industry, organization, then you also leverage that as well. So I think you just have to find your sweet spot, where you're comfortable in, what is your zone of genius, so that people want to hear you. And then also, I love the idea of after you're done speaking, they say, so what else do you do? That's the goal. The goal, your message should make people curious about working with you long-term, right? And really asking like, okay, what else is in there that you offer? Those I think are great conversations and talks that lead to ongoing relationships.
Okay, fabulous. Thank you, Benny. Giving me lots of things that I now want to ask yourselves as well. I'll just share how I got into the corporate space. Was I was facilitating a session with mentees and mentors for it was actually for the government, and they liked my style, and the head person from the Home Office said, let's do lunch. So a lot of it is relationship building. I had lunch and he said, oh, we've got a graduation of a program we're running. I'd love you to come in and speak. And I was like, okay, great. What's the fee? And I was like, no, there's no fee. I was like, okay. I came, I thought, okay, I'm just going to come in. So I came in and I did a 20-minute speech. And in the audience was a event organizer, and they organized women's conferences and BAME in England. So BAME stands for Black, Asian, Minority and Ethnic Conferences. And yeah, the rest is history. And then I was with them for around 5 years. And then I think I'd speak at least 6 or 7 of their events around the UK. And then from the events, obviously I'd speak, I'd get paid. And then people in the audience would want me to come speak at them. So it was just like a non-stop pool of, speaking engagements. So that's how I first started. Now, so what's the point of that? Yes, if you're first starting out, don't worry too much about the money. The money will come. It really is about building relationships, getting your experience, feeling confident as you speak in front of an audience, and then start learning the business of speaking. But before we move on to the next question, well, this is a question, but I wanted to know, what are your topics for the corporate space? Who wants to share? Dara, what's your topic for the corporate space?
Well, I do 2 different ones. One is for corporate women to become, I call it polite leaders to powerful leaders, so they can find their voice and really lead with impact. And the other one is to speak with impact, because that's all part of my branding, is how to give powerful presentations with clarity and charisma. And so a lot of times it's people that have to give a presentation and they're not really sure how to structure it, or I come in and I help them. I have a stage formula: stories, takeaways, audience participation, a gesture or giveaway, and then the end. And it helps you put together a presentation within minutes. So it's just an easy way for people that are stressing presentations, because that was me, and I needed a way to help myself. And when I figured that out, I realized, there must be others who can benefit from this. So those are the topics I focus on, is women leaders and stage presentations.
Okay, fabulous. Thank you. Jeannie, how about yourself?
I work with leaders of leaders, and that means people who are focused on people strategies and developing other leaders. And we talk about leadership and different, usually it's a layered approach of leadership, communication, process, and then how we connect people and help them develop their genius. That's my brand. So we help people express their genius, develop their genius, but it's with leaders of leaders. So specifically leaders who also want to bring other leaders along.
Great. Thank you. And Tara, Dr. Michelle, Benny, what are your topics you speak on?
So since my background is in sales, that's a lot of my stuff is in sales. So the 2 probably most requested are either really how to network. People want to network. They're in businesses where they need to network and they don't know how to do it effectively to actually get results. So a lot of how do you foster relationships that are actually going to be strategic, that are going to be collaborative, that will lead to something. But also I have a talk on how to get through fear in sales and business using an acronym for FUN. And so a lot of mind shift work. I work a lot with mindset. But specifically then, I think at least in the corporate world, this is what I have found, is that mindset is great, but there needs to be a monetary result. People want something that's going to cause their business to make money. So I've been able to take what I enjoy talking about, which is the mindset, the resiliency, and then craft it into tangible results, networking and sales.
Yeah, sales. Ooh, sales is big, because without sales, you don't have a business. So if you can speak to a sales audience, they're always there. I think that's the last area they skimp on, is sales. They'll skimp on training and development and all these other things.
Yep.
But sales,
people pay to make money.
Exactly. Benny, how about yourself?
Yeah. It's kind of evolved. One that I stood on. I like to test it out for a season and almost test it out for at least a year and see where can it evolve? So one of them has been I'm looking at my speaker one page, the art of leadership communication. I think there's always a huge conversation that allows me to talk to both the senior leaders as well at C-level, but then also those directors and managers as well. And so there's layers and levels to that conversation. One that I find that I am really been focused in, I've been doing a lot of VIP one days with CEOs and executives, and a lot of it has been about corporate alignment, right? Mission, vision, values, and call to action. And so I'm actually changing one of my talks because I realized that a lot of CEOs want that. I think what's coming into and again, this is where you have to just know your market and the people that you're working with. Like, what are some of those really, really important messages that they want to convey? Like, some of us could convey a CEO's vision and mission better than they can. It's very interesting, right? Like, we see things from a whole different lens. And so what I'm realizing is that's actually a really good conversation to have. And so we're developing some new talks around that. So it's been around that. One that I do that's more for entrepreneurs and business owners is public speaking versus the public speaking. So it's how to deal with criticism, how to deal with people who are like you're not the problem. What you're saying, maybe the issues are what you think other people think about you. So there are specific topics that I like to bring into the conversation. But for corporate, I like to stick more to leadership and communication, because I feel like when we talk about those, which are really the two biggest subjects that I feel like are always talked about, it opens the door for a lot of other conversations.
Exactly. Such great points. Thank you. And Dr. Misha, I feel like you shared your topic.
So I think, I'll just tell you though, the corporate audience is more around transforming conflict into collaboration. So really about leadership and action and the way that you can run your group or your project or your team in ways that build trust and create a different culture of collaboration. So that's really what I focused on in the corporate world. So I will talk to organizations that have gone through a crisis, such as a sexual harassment scandal, where groups have lost trust in the senior leadership. The new senior leadership has come in, and we're trying to reestablish not only the top level leaders as trustworthy, but the middle managers. So really working on how do middle managers navigate that fact of the senior leadership changing, and deal with employees who are feeling really insecure in the trustworthiness of their organization.
Wow, fabulous. Oh my gosh, such an array of different topics, from sales to leadership, women leadership, to fear. My topic, I speak on thinking disciplines. So I have 5 thinking disciplines to elevate your performance, productivity, and obviously profits, the 3 Ps. Because, we're always dealing with challenges in life. I love a phrase, and it says, you're either going towards a problem, you're in a problem, or you're on the way out going towards another problem. It's life. And how do we navigate it? And I think one of the key ways is obviously through our mind, our thoughts. That's the first thing that's going to get triggered. So let's start to have some mastery over it. So I love speaking on all things to do with thinking and performance, because it goes hand in hand. Okay. Well, I feel like we've covered so much, from relationships to research, to, some topics are more research based. Benny touched on asking questions. And I just want to say welcome as well to the person listening, wherever you are. We're streaming on so many different platforms. Benny's in Instagram. Maybe someone can check for me. I thought I was in Instagram live at the top, but I can't see myself.
I see you. I see you on Instagram live. I can't see myself, but I can see you.
Ah, good, because I see you, Benny. Exactly.
I see you.
See, don't ask a question, you'll never know. So asking questions is really important. But yeah, we're streamed on, Tara is streamed on LinkedIn. So we're all around the place at the moment. I'm in Facebook as well as LinkedIn. And that's the great thing, that we can get our message out there in many different ways. So look, we've covered how we got into the world of speaking, and we know that a lot of it is relationship based. What are some mistakes? Actually, before we get on to that, I just wanted to share, I was speaking with someone yesterday, and she was telling me what is the difference between them booking someone who's like a 10K speaker. I asked her that question. What's the difference that someone's a 10K to a 20K speaker? Why will they, what is that difference? And in her opinion, hello, Tiffany. Tiffany's watching. She said, hi, Jeannie. She must know you from your page.
Hi, Tiffany.
I said, what's the difference between because they're going to Google you. If they don't know you or someone's referred you, they are going to Google you. And what has you show up? I know I can go on someone's website and I can really easily, I can Google them. I can tell if they're a 1K speaker, a 5K speaker, a 10K speaker. And I'm around that, the 10K mark. So I want to know, what's the 20K? What's that gap that I need to jump? And in her opinion, what makes the difference for the 20K speaker, obviously the keynote, but your website, what does your website really look like? So if you don't know, well, if you like, how do I compare it? Go and find someone who's a 20K speaker and have a look at their website. She said they usually have a book. So a book's a big one. How many here have a book?
It's right there.
I'm in the process of writing my book. So that's a definite in the next couple of months.
I have a digital one. I don't think it constitutes for an actual book, but it does. I mean, it counts, but it's not paperback. It's not something I normally let people download it, but yeah.
Yeah, I think the thing about that is that if you can get it when you speak, one of those products that you actually spoke about, Benny, like what else can you offer? Sometimes conferences or corporates will pay for the books. So therefore, sometimes you don't want to maybe have them all in your garage, but you can get them printed in time to ship over.
That might be a good idea. I think I need to do that this year, because like even we built the whole funnel automation around it. Actually, I just recorded 3 videos to put in our Speak More Academy just for that. And so, I mean, I like what I wrote, but I think it's great. You know what I mean? But yeah, I think I need to do that. You guys hold me accountable to that, because I really do. Yeah. I think I need to get it printed.
Yeah, and I think if you write shorter pieces, like I write things for the MIT Sloan Management Review or Harvard Business Review, you can also use those types of things. And also when people interview you, if you're cited in Fast Company or Forbes or things like that, are also helpful to be able to give them information about kind of social proof that people are going to you as an expert.
Yeah. And that's the thing. A lot of 20K speakers are known as thought leaders.
And it's not hard. I was just jump in and say, it's not hard to write a book. If you have your speech can be your book. Remember, it doesn't need to be this whole new invention. So we have to, take advantage of the work we've already done.
Yeah. And we do someone to accompany us, AI. But, I don't know how much that is going to either go for authors or against authors. I don't know if a New York Times bestseller will ever, like, they'll ask you the question, did you use AI? And that will be something that they, you can't become a New York bestseller if you've used AI to write your book with you. It's one of those sort of great.
AI is just a ghostwriter.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that's an interesting question, though.
Oh, it is.
Maybe we'll talk about that on another section with regards to AI and speaking, because we're going into the world, and TED has TED AI now as a conference.
Wow,
it's a separate conference, so AI is
let me ask you something, Elaine. I mean, maybe to the group as well. I think one thing that I've seen people do is that they write a book and they never talk about it. That's the part for me where, like with this book that I wrote, I call it it's called the 3 Core Essentials to Speaking with Confidence, and I narrowed it down because I felt like I needed a landing place to create conversation, right? And so, like, even yesterday, I was on a media segment, and the guy, he said, "Well, what do you want to talk about?" I said, "I want to talk about what I talk about." Like, because it's easier for me to talk about it and for them to say, hey, go listen to more, go read the book, go download this. Like for me, it just makes sense, right? And even more so if I did do corporate leadership training on, the 3 core essentials to speaking with confidence, we could easily turn that into a leadership type talk, right? So for me, I think I just have to figure out with that product is how to leverage it in different markets. Because if I could do that, I think it'll be great.
So I'll tell you with my experience of the book. So I was speaking, but I wrote a book which really pushed me into professional paid speaking. So I was unaware people got paid to speak for a very long time. And then I was like, oh, wow, you'll pay me to do this. So I actually kind of had the book first, but my book is a very niche book. And I will say that having a book did a couple of things. One is that in the beginning, for organizations that didn't have a budget or they didn't want to pay, they would allow me to sell my book. So I was making money because I was showing up with a table for my book. And my book is specifically for parents who have children with cancer. I mean, that is a very niche, right? Not everybody is going to read that book. So
and
what I would do,
don't bypass that. And your TEDx talk.
Yeah, so that's what my TEDx talk is on. Yes, too. And so what I would do if it was an organization that, these people didn't have children with cancer, I would ask them if they wanted to donate a book to a nonprofit that would help. So people would show up, they would hear me speak, they would say, yes, we want to support what she's doing. And they would then buy a book, even if it wasn't for them. So I was still able to leverage that. That ended up me speaking into mindset. And what I've done since then, because I will tell you, and my book was a little bit different. It was so personal that it was a labor that I don't know I ever want to do again. So I have since, because I do think there's value in like what Benny's saying is, what do I do next with you? Okay, I heard you speak. Where do I go next? So I've started to create workbooks and smaller journals and books that you can take what I'm talking about and implement it to grow from. And those are easy to sell. They're easy to create. You can have those as an offer for your attendees. That creates extra revenue because sometimes they might not have a budget for a speaker, but they have budgets for products, right? It gives you a place to send people. And in today's world, I think if you are a speaker, having something that's a next step is very important. Like to me, Benny, that's a no-brainer. Take what you have and literally you can download it and have that published in a week. The other thing I've seen people do, which I think is brilliant, is if you blog, if you write and you're writing for your blog or you're writing from other places, I've seen people then take that massive amount of information that they've created over maybe a year and put those into chapters in a book. I mean, that's what Lois Kramer did. She took her, which was like, the Bible for speaking. I think, what's it called? The Business of Speaking, or
Book More Business. Yeah.
Book More Business. And that was just basically her blog. And she took the best blog posts that people wanted and she created them into chapters and created this phenomenal book. So if you're kind of intimidated to write a book, think, what Dara is saying, I have my talk already. I can take that becomes part of my book. Benny's saying I have digital products, or Michelle has, I've been writing for these different publications. Where can you take what you've already created and create a book? The only thing I will say is that I have seen, because it is so easy to create a book now and put it up on KDP. I've seen books from speakers that are just awful. I mean, they really are. And you can tell they did it just to write a book. It's large print. It's got lots of light and lots of spaces. It was like they try bullets everywhere and it's just awful. And when I've seen that, what it's done is, even though I thought the speaker was great, once I see that, I then lose credibility in the speaker. So when Elaine is talking about a 20K speaker, that is not a 20K speaker book. So I would say be very mindful. Is this book something valuable that when people read it, they're going to say, I want more? And that maybe because we're so close to it and we love ourselves and we think we're so great, you might need somebody else to read it and give you some feedback, because just because you can publish on your own doesn't mean you should. So
I would love to jump in here. I'm sorry, Benny, you want to go ahead?
No, go ahead. I was just going to say something.
Go ahead. Round
Just let it go. I'm gonna let it go.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, and even more so when they're like, Amazon bestseller. I'm like, what? Like,
Plus and yes.
So it's crazy because I feel like for me writing, like I'm not gonna lie, when I wrote mine, I didn't know if it was an ebook or if it should be a book. I just know that I needed to do it. One, because I needed to get it out. Two, because I sat on it for a year, right? and thirdly, I knew that I needed it as a lead magnet to attract people. I remember one time I was actually on LinkedIn, or it was Clubhouse. It was Clubhouse, and the girl got on and she was screenshotting me and highlighting all my stuff in the ebook. She goes, "This is great." I'm like, "You're the first person I think that's read it." like I don't know if anybody's read it, but I was excited, but it was really, really cool. But yeah, I think you're right. Like just being able to put it out there and it be our work. I just feel like we just got to talk about it more. That's all.
Yeah,
and the Amazon bestseller.
As we've only got 13 minutes left, I just want to say, if you are watching, please put your question. So hi, Tiffany. Hi, Angeline. Please put your question in the comment box wherever you are, and hopefully it will show up here and we can answer it in the time that we are together. Jeannie, I think you wanted to jump in.
I did. Even though we talk together every time, I am amazed at what we learn here by hearing our speaker colleagues talk about the thread of what the evolution of becoming a speaker is. I think we started off with how do you get a corporate speaking option to go speak to people, and what we've all been saying is it's that one thing builds on the next. And I was really struck at the very beginning, as Tara said, my first speaking engagement, you were like, you said I was a nobody. Why did they bring it? And then she tells us how she just taught other people how to not be a nobody, sell and get out there. And so I think we learn from ourselves. We always say college children have no shoes. We may not have our things done that we might teach. However, I think we learn from ourselves, we learn from others. And so now she teaches people how to get out there, how to sell, how to not be, quote, you're not a nobody, but how to not do that. And then we turn that into how, if we're feeling it, other people are feeling it. If you know something, there is a business or corporation that needs what the message is. And that's what I would encourage everybody to think about. And it might be the book, and it might be the talking, and it might be, as Benny said, sit in the back of the room and give them advice, advise them, be seen as the authority, the credible authority advisor on how to run that meeting a little more effectively. Then they're going to want more and more, like everybody's been saying. So like the thread.
Yeah. Great points. Great points. Tara, did you want to say something?
Well, just with the Amazon bestseller. So when I did my book, it was a Amazon best-selling new release book. But I have to tell you guys, if you see that, and I kind of joke, I was laughing as Benny was saying this, because that's a strategy. It is not a New York Times bestseller. It's a strategy based on, and you can, if that's important to you and you want that next to your book, which I did, there's a strategy on which category you choose, where you choose that, what are the other books in that category. It's very purposeful, and there's a lot of things people will do. They will do pre-selling of their book where they're buying the books, they're just making people pay shipping because it's based on how many sell in the first few days. So that's a totally different business that at this point has little value. It's more where what's going to come next. You can have I know lots of people who they collaborate, you got 100 people writing a chapter in a book, and then everybody buys one copy, and all of a sudden it's a bestseller. And that just has to do with how they kind of worked the system. So don't get too caught up in that. I worked the system. It worked well.
Yeah. I'm sure we could have a whole session just on these products, because I haven't written the book yet, so I'm still in the minutia of writing it. But I also wanted to touch on what are some of the, well, actually, before I get to that, I always forget it and then I remember it again. I think it was Clint Pulver, and he's like a 30K speaker. He goes into lots of corporates and does these big events. I guess I shouldn't say people's price. Oh, well, bananas. Is it bananas? And he said one of the key things we need to ensure that we have in place as speakers is, what is the problem that you solve? I think there's two things. One, what is, like, if you can really get tight on what actually is that problem, that's what people are paying you for. And I was speaking to someone for a speaker bureau a couple of weeks ago, and he just nonchalantly said, "Oh, so what's your message?" And I was like, okay, here we go. And, and then and I was a bit stuck because I have a couple of, keynotes, like, which message do I share with him? Is there one? Do I go all three? So that was a bit of a learning curve for me. Just go with one. Go with the one that's the most sought after keynote. So I just wanted to give that to the people listening. You really need to know what is the problem that you solve, as well as what is your message. And it has to rattle off your tongue as if you're saying, I had tea and toast for breakfast. Yeah, it has to come really, really naturally. Did you want to say something on that, Benny? Because I
was going to say, and not even just knowing the problem you solve, but what problems they have that you can solve, right? Yeah. So I think I have found more with corporate, there's always a bigger issue, right? I think, again, going back to, I think you need like 3 powerful questions to help frame the conversation, right? So for example, I know I've started off like, hey, can you come in and do a training? Yeah. Well, tell me more about what the training, what is it? Why do you feel the need for this type of training? And well, we want to make sure that our people are doing it. Well, let me ask you something. How are the employees responding to the leaders? Right? Boom. All right, let's start there. Okay. So one, here's what that does. It raises the price now because you speak to a different caliber of person. And there may be layers to this. There's times where they brought me in to do speaking, and before you know it, I'm doing a 1-day strategy session, which is completely different. But what it did is that it allowed me. So when we say speaking, there's just different ways that we can do that, right? And I just think that we have to also make sure that we're asking questions and really understanding the landscape of what we're doing. Only because when I started off doing corporate, I was doing that. I would go in, get the workshop, and I'm out, and I'm like, I didn't really build that relationship. I really didn't ask the right question. Now I delivered what they asked, but if I'm a problem solver, right? Like what we're saying, what problem do you solve? And I know I solve multiple problems, then I got to go in there with a better strategy to make sure that I'm gauging the conversation.
Yeah. One of my coaches gave me a blueprint, and it's 4 main headings. I'm looking at it now. Results to achieve. And there's like 20 questions you could potentially ask. What do you need the people to think, feel, act differently to how they are now? How will we measure the success of your speech? So there's 4 titles: the results to achieve, the risks to avoid. And I've never really thought about that when I've been asking questions. Are there things going on in the organization that I need to be aware of? Whether it's around compliance, policies, no-go areas. And I never used to ask those questions before. But as Benny said, it is important to understand, what's actually the bigger problem that they're dealing with as an organization. Symptoms to remove. I was like, oh, that's a different one. What issues or concerns do they have that you're trying to eradicate from the delegates? What are the issues from previous events, and logistical things as well that you kind of need to make sure that you really have got it down in those questions. So look, we could do one about scope. We could do a session just about and I think we actually should, about getting on the call, because I think a lot of people are scared about, what do I do on the call with somebody? So what do you think? We should do that for our next session, because I think then it's a nice segue from here.
I think that's a great question. And, it's helpful, just so Benny, to have you on here, because, and Michelle will probably attest to this, men show up in the corporate world very different than women do. Men show up, I think, in the speaking world, just in general, they negotiate different. I'm reading a book right now, and there was a great advice that I actually just took on my last event. And it said, when people ask you, like, what do you charge? What do you do? Pretend you're a man. If you were a man, what would you answer? And I have to tell you, that question changed how I would answer it. I thought, how crazy is that I actually think differently if I think if I'm Benny, right? Because of our how women perceive their worth and their value. So I think, Elaine, that would be a great conversation. And I think it's so awesome to have someone like Benny because he makes us think differently. At least for me. Maybe you all are all good on that.
I think
but for me,
I'm trying to think like a woman. If you ask me, to be honest with you, I'm trying to figure out I'm trying to figure out how to be, like connect and be smart. Like us men, sometimes we're just, I don't know. I don't know. I'm trying to think like a woman.
A great question I ask is, if I left and this was the best event you ever had and your attendees left and they were raving about the event, what would you want them saying? And that's been a very helpful question to get an idea of what is the outcome that they're looking for. I started doing that actually on podcasts.
I'm going to move this on slightly because I know Dr. Michelle wants to jump in and say something.
Oh, we have some questions too.
Oh, no, I was just going to say I did a study where we had people negotiate, but in virtual reality. So they had avatars. And so the person might have an avatar of their same gender or the opposite gender. And what we found was that the gender of the avatar didn't change their behavior, but the gender of the opposite avatar. So if you thought you were negotiating with a man, people were much more aggressive than if they thought they were negotiating with a woman, regardless of what the gender of the person actually behind the avatar.
Interesting.
Fabulous.
So, Elaine,
all right.
Sorry,
Tara. Time-wise, we only have 3 minutes, so I'm going to have to move on because I also want to answer the 2 questions that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The question.
Yeah.
Thank you, Angelina.
One goes with this topic. Tiffany's does.
Okay. Who wants to take Angeline's question? I don't know much about that. Just a short 1-minute response.
I was going to take Tiffany. So.
Okay. What's the difference between being a published author of a book versus writing a book? I don't know if I know the answer to that question.
I think it's just a credibility. It's the difference of being a supporting actor in a play and being the lead. You know, so it doesn't take away that you're a published author, but it's not the same as having your own product.
Right? Yeah, because I have a chapter in a book, but I don't feel like I'm an author. Yeah. Okay. And Dara, do you want to take Tiffany's question?
Yeah. Well, when I first started speaking, everybody told me.
Sorry, Dara, could you write? Dara, could you read out the question because other people don't know what the question is?
Do you want me to read?
Yeah, you read it. I'll read it to you then. Okay. I focus on just women's empowerment, leadership transformation. Should I turn down speaking engagements that don't focus on those, or just adapt my keynote for a mixed audience?
Yeah, this was something that I was told in the very beginning. You can't just speak to women, and that was my market. I wanted to help women speak up at sales meetings, in meetings, and on stage. And everybody told me you can't do that. But I'm a stubborn person, and I did it for 20 years. You have to find the right organizations. I went to women's organizations and conferences and associations. But then when I wanted to speak into corporate, I did have to open it up to a co-ed audience. So it's not that you can or cannot do it. You have to be strategic on who you're focusing on. And this is a little bit more of a deeper conversation that we won't have time for today, but you can do it. Just don't let people take you away from what your core message is. If you just want to speak to women, that's great. You have to focus on where those women are. In a corporate space, they can't separate the men out, and your message probably can help men too. That's what I realized. So that's when I became a co-ed speaker, I guess we'll say. So that's where you can get a bigger audience now because you're reaching more people. So just something to think about, and maybe we can have a private conversation, Tiffany, if that's something you're curious about.
Fabulous. Well, thank you so much for answering that question. Yes, Benny, did you want to respond?
Yeah. I think someone's comfort level, stepping outside the box and being able to speak to different audiences helps us to understand things that normally, you know what I mean? Like for me, I'll just be really honest. I enjoy working with women entrepreneurs and business owners. They have a whole different perspective that for me just opens my eyes up in a very different way. If I always thought, someone said to me in the beginning, just work with men entrepreneurs and business owners and executives. They drive me crazy. Like I'm like, no, right? Because what I appreciate is the diversity. What I appreciate is learning from two different types of audiences. And so I'd say it's a great opportunity also to test out what other people think, right? It's great to talk to your own kind of people, but what does it feel like to spread that out, get feedback, and get more insight on the topics? I think it only is going to further her speaking.
Okay, I think that is a fabulous point to end our session today. And I'm sure the person watching has got so much value, because I have, from listening to the, all the different angles we've come from with regards to speaking in the corporate space. We have a free resource, which you can see at the bottom of the page. And if you're just in listening mode, it's www.mindspeak.uk/resources with an S _LinkedIn. And each one of our fabulous, I think there's 10 of us, moderators, has given a free resource, whether it's an ebook or a masterclass, to help you evolve in your speaking and get your voice out there. So look, we've covered from referrals, relationships. Relationships are highly important. We've looked at topics, titles, started to talk about the types of conversations we have when we speak to the event organizers, the industry, market, and the audience. But you have to know what is the problem that you solve, but most importantly, what is the problem that they're pulling you in, so that you are the solution to that problem that they're dealing with. And then we also touched on products and books as well, which kind of got us all going a lot around books. There's just so much to talk about with regards to corporate speaking. So maybe we'll cover this for a couple of sessions. We will be back on it's the second Friday of the month, so the 9th of February. We will be back. We're going to still cover the subject of corporate, because I think there's still a lot more to cover on this. And so as we leave, I just want to say thank you to my fabulous moderators for being here. Dara, any pearls? I mean, let me put your names so everyone can see your names and where to contact you. So I don't think you really need to say that very much. You've put the @ in your, Dara, in your title, which I love. I think I'm going to do that next time. But what's your 30 seconds words of wisdom for the person listening?
Well, I would say that we have so much fear, most of us, about speaking, and we can analyze this and think about it for many years and not really take the chance to get started. So if you don't know where to begin, surround yourself with other speakers. Coming into these rooms is a great place to start. Get involved with taking action, some sort of action. Maybe join a networking group, work with a coach, or just begin to start thinking about, who do I know in the speaking world that I can maybe pick their brain? Take an action, because it really is something that we can overanalyze. Am I ready? Do I know my content enough? And you are more ready than you think. Most of the clients I've talked to tell me, I'm not ready. And here they have PhDs and 26 years of experience. And we're overthinking this too much. I am confident that you're ready. If you're on these calls, you're probably more ready than you think, and you just have to take action. And that's where I dare you to begin.
Thank you, Dara. Jeannie, Dr. Jeannie.
I will just say, get out there and ask and express your genius.
Lovely. Thank you. Short, sweet, and to the point. Benny?
The 3 P's when it comes to speaking. Number 1, prepare, practice, and perform. That's the best way you're going to build your confidence.
Okay, fabulous. Thank you. And Tara, how about yourself?
So mine would just be trust. Trust that if you have a message and God has put something in your heart to share, that there are people who need that message, and trust that the doors will open, the right connections will happen, because your message is your gift to the world.
Love it. And Dr. Michelle?
I think sometimes what holds speakers back is they're multi-passionate, and there's so many topics they can speak about, and they can't choose one. And I would just suggest that we talked about what problem do you solve? So think about, what is the problem that people consistently come to you and ask for your advice about? That's probably the problem that is most needed in the speaking arena. And so work on your keynote on that problem, even though you may have other wonderful interests.
Yeah, fabulous. And thank you. Great pearls of wisdom to end on. I'll do more of a heart one, that I just think if you have a calling, like a voice inside of you has said, yes, speak in the world of corporate, go into these organizations, listen to your internal guide, because that is propelling you forward into the next step. It may feel uncomfortable, and that's okay, because growth is in the stretch. And if you're not feeling uncomfortable, it's because you're not playing a bigger game and you're not stretching yourself enough. So your job is to be comfortable being uncomfortable until you become comfortable, and then you need to jump and become uncomfortable. That's my words of wisdom to you. That's where growth will happen.
She said.
So say what?
All right. On that note, moderators always stay here with me, but for everybody else, we will see you on the 9th of February. Happy speaking.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.